there is a concept behind this album, and the concept itself is represented even in the mixing. Hello there, girls and boys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna be analyzing for the first time Pain of Salvation, one of my favorite bands ever, and one of the bands that has influenced me quite a lot as a composer and even as a singer as well, because the lead singer for this band is fantastic, you're gonna see. And the track in question is 1979 from the album Salt Road Part 2, which it's badass, and we're gonna be analyzing it together. So if this is your jam, well, let's get into it. Before we go, if this is first time on this channel, I welcome you because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, using language that anybody can understand, in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production and songwriting. So if this is your jam, let's rock and roll now. So here you go, girls and boys, 1979 by Pain of Salvation.
It was 79, and the world seemed more kind, and it was still okay to be modest. The 60s were gone, but their soul lingered on, and the 80s were still just a promise. And I remember me and you. Two children of six, still playing with sticks, and whatever we found in the forest. Our grandpas were strong, and our parents still young, and the world seemed a little more honest. And I remember me and you.
How about that? I guess you weren't expecting the song to be this way if you haven't heard of these guys before. Pain of Salvation is one of my favorite bands ever, as I stated in the introduction to this video, because of how expansive their music is. They are clearly a progressive rock act, but they have plenty of music that is extremely metal driven. And I would even make the argument that they could be considered at times a prog metal band, but that's up for debate. There are many things that I'd like to say. For example, the first thing, did you notice the effect on his vocals? Is known as delay, and it was the tiny repetitions taking place after he sang anything. And it sounds like this, delay, okay? And from what I can hear, he's using a particular style of delay that is called tape delay. What's the whole point of it, or what makes it different from regular or digital delay? Let me explain. Back in the day, these repetitions were created by actually recording to tape. A tiny tape, a reel-to-reel tape machine was actually recording the sound of whatever was fed to it, for example, vocals, and it was reproduced back to us with the set amount of delay, giving us this kind of repetition. And it has a particular tone to it, due to the fact of it relying on actual tape. And one of the characteristics is how dark it is. Dark means that it has not that much high end, and also how lo-fi those repetitions are. Pay attention next time around once I press play again, and you're gonna be able to hear it whenever he sings back at you. Also, what do you think about the sound of his voice? He's a great singer, don't you think? He has fantastic technique, he's quite expressive, and also his range, it's quite broad, you'll see. This song is not, in my opinion, one of the best showcases of his vocal prowess, but nonetheless still a great performance. And if I recall correctly, his name is Daniel Guidelot. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And also, what do you think about the sound of the orchestration? Quite kind of, how can I put it? Not bombastic at all, don't you think? This being a record, a much more modern record, sounds quite similar to an older record from the 70s. I think that's by design. Pay attention to the sound of the drums. once they kick in, because they haven't been presented to us yet. They introduced some form of quasi-rhythmical element, which was kind of a drum machine, a programmed drum machine. For example, this device that you see with lights behind me, that's a machine. And those guys are used to create music. But everything is created there and it's programmable. So the whole thing is you actually have a pattern and you create the pattern there, and the music is going to be played back by the computer or the device itself by its own, creating this kind of repetitive and extremely robotic sound that is the staple for many modern music genres. For example, electronic music, clearly. But what do you think about the arrangement as well? You got flutes, reminding me quite a lot of Jethro Tull, another one of my favorite bands ever. And also, it quite fits nicely with the use of the strings. There is a very beautiful string quartet playing at certain sections of the track that adds a lot of tension and creates this cinematic vibe, which I think is integral to this track. I'm going to press play again, and please pay attention to those details. And also, once the drums kicked in, well, you'll see. We'll discuss them later. Here we go.
Do you remember? 'Cause I remember me and you.
Once again, a short and extremely sweet song, don't you think? Kinda, how can I put it? Kinda melancholic. It's clearly about somebody who is thinking of better times and better people, clearly, and is just remembering those moments. And I think the music embodies that sentiment quite correctly, don't you think? What do you think about the use of the piano? Fantastic, don't you think? I think it's beautiful. It's so sad sounding, yet hopeful and melancholic, all in all. Now, when I mentioned the drums, they kind of just joined and are reinforcing the drum machine. You could clearly hear it on the snare. There is a snare pattern that actually just enhances the rhythmical elements that are produced by the computer, well, the device used to produce the rhythmic pattern. Creating a very nice interaction between organic and synthetic. And since the song, most of the instruments are actual acoustic instruments, they have this beautiful dynamic. That's why I think they decided to go for a drum machine rather than an actual drum kit. Now, let's take a look at the screen because I want to discuss the mix with you. Welcome back, girls and boys, to Decibel. In front of you, you got the tool known as Decibel that we use in this channel to analyze music through the use of a visual medium. Over here, we got the first section, which is what we're going to be using to analyze the frequency spectrum of our music, starting from 20 Hz, which is the lowest we can hear, all the way down to 20,000 Hz. This white line represents how loud set frequency was at the peak of the performance, okay? How loud it was at its highest point. And as not surprise at all, the song first and foremost is very quiet. This is a very quiet song. Secondly, we got a very low end, a very tiny representation of the low end, because there is one of the things that defines this album, because the album on its entirety sounds like this. Actually, it has this kind of old-fashioned style. It feels a little bit that it actually comes out of the 70s. It's not pronounced in the low end, and it doesn't feel punchy. There are some other songs on this album that are way harder hitting, but they are far from sounding like a bombastic metal record from the 2000s, which this is when this album was produced. So this is very interesting. And here we get a very clear visual cue or visual representation of why the album sounds the way it does. We got plenty of mid-range, clearly, because most of, well, you can clearly see here that this is the lead singing voice. Most of the time he's behaving around this area. And also, you don't have that many instruments that could be covering this section, which could be hi-hats, coming from a drum kit, cymbals, and also electric guitars. No electric guitar was used in the production of this sound. And you can see that also we have very little information in the low mids because the bass is most of the time playing on this section. And I gotta tell you that I love the sound of everything in this album. It's not the most pristine album. We have already analyzed albums that truly sounds way better than this one. For example, ABC's Lexion of Love. But this guy has, how can I put it, soul. It has personality. This is done in purpose, and I love that because it's trying to portray something. There is a concept behind this album, and the concept itself is represented even in the mixing of the album itself. That's very, very cool because it's trying through to the whole craftsmanship that involves music creation. Love it to the taste. And then let's take a look at the next section because this is the big one, and this is going to be a great. Finally, we'll have a proper example of what I mean with this. The Doors Voice is known as the Dynamic Range Analyzer. And this, for those of you who know, well, you know, but for those of you who don't know, this is the tool we use to analyze the differences between the lowest point and highest point in volume of a given record throughout time. And that's very important because the louder a signal is, the more exciting we understand it as human beings to be. And the quieter it becomes, the more somber, interesting, mysterious, and sexy, if you wish, the sound is going to be interpreted by us. And this track is quiet, but it also goes bananas at the end, as bananas as this album can go, okay? You can see that the beginning was super, super somber. This is the introduction of the piano, and then it drops for the vocals to kick in. And you see that the song is just highly dynamic. There are moments of ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs, the entirety of the time. We are not seeing a huge monolithic blob of sound. This is actually evolving, highly organic. And look, the song feels quite intimate, don't you think? And also has this emotional vibe that most of you weren't expecting. When I listened to this track the first time, it actually took me by surprise. Because it's actually a highly emotional. It's very, very, at least it hits me hard. And one of the reasons why it has that effect on us is due to the fact of it being extremely dynamic. And you can see here that the introduction was very somber and kind of cinematic in a way. It's bringing us it's taking us inside of this world that the music is about. And you see how little by little, the storytelling element of the vocals and the performance of the singer is what draws in. Here you see when we got the first chorus and then poof, drop. For the introduction of the drum pattern to kick in and give us a little bit of a much more exciting section. And just take a look at the difference in volume of the beginning when compared to this section where the drums start off. Then moving over to the second half of the track, there is the drop. When they leave us alone with the piano playing the beautiful melody for the reintroduction of everything, including the fantastic vocal arrangement, to hit us hard as balls. And there you see the highest point in volume of the track. Look. Beautiful, right? Just for it to drop again, for it to leave us alone with the piano and the singer, for the beautiful vocal arrangement to kick in the when I remember that section. Beautiful. Capitalizing on the power and the extremely well use of the volume and the amount of volume or loudness coming out of the speakers while the track's playing. Huge. This is important, girls and boys, because this is where the money is going to be found. Most of the best records in history capitalize on this particular aspect of music quite a lot, because this is kind of a way to pull tricks on you from the mixing perspective. And what do I mean by that? You as a listener. As I explained to you, depending on how loud a signal or how quiet it is, our natural reaction to it will vary and change. And music It's something that it's an organic affair. Music evolves through time. It's basically sound evolving throughout time. And that dynamic range is what allows emotion to pour out of us, the performers, the musicians, and to be absorbed by you, the audience. And when a record is produced like this, that element of emotion is portrayed even better. It hits you harder, and it has a way more permanent impact on us as listeners. I went deep, but I hope that made sense to you. This is a very good record, Girls and Boys. I totally recommend you, and this is a very great band that I think deserves way more recognition. And, please tell me the name of the people involved in the production of this album, particularly the lineup of this band during this period, because this is a fantastic ensemble. I think this is one of the best lineup the band has ever had. But please let me know what you think about Pain of Salvation, and if this is the first time you listen to their music, please let me know what you think, because I like them a lot. But just be mindful that their music moves quite a lot across different styles, and there is one thing in common: their music is always kinda eerie and kinda unsettling. That's badass, but it might put you at the edge of your seats. Okay, girls and boys, thank you for watching, thank you for joining, and if you like to support this kind of content, the best way to do it is by listening to our music on Apple Music or Spotify. That actually is quite inspired and highly influenced by these guys. And also, you can support this channel by following us here on YouTube, and also by following us on social media such as Instagram and X, because that's the best way for you to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis. Now, girls and boys, as every single time I meet you, I just gotta remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember, I'll see you when I see you.